Hi, I'm Chris from Lecture Owl. Welcome to Music for All. In this 10-part instructional series, I'm going to teach you how to play guitar, from picking up a guitar for the very first time, all the way through to writing your very first song. We will be covering topics like parts of a guitar, notes, chords, scales, song structure, lyric writing, and self-expression. We will also be using a demo song as an example, and we'll be joined at the end by Carliana to showcase it, as I'm not the best singer. Ready to go? Let's get started. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about parts of a guitar, the names of the strings, and how to tune your guitar to standard tuning. We're going to start with parts of a guitar and then talk about how a guitar works. So I've got with me an acoustic guitar, and it consists of three main parts: the body, the neck, and the head or headstock. Now the first part we're going to look at is the bridge. This on an acoustic essentially just holds the strings in place. Moving up, we've got a sound hole. This allows sound reverberations to echo inside the body and produce that lovely acoustic sound. Moving up, we've got the neck. Now on the front of the neck, the little piece of wood or the strip of wood that covers the neck is called a fingerboard. And on the fingerboard we've got these little wires running down, and those are called frets. Now the way a guitar works is when you strum a string, or when you hit a string, the string vibrates at a certain frequency, making a note. Now when you put your finger down amongst the different frets, the frequency changes, making the note on the guitar change. And so on and so forth. Now moving up to the headstock, at the base of the headstock where the head meets the neck, we have a nut, and essentially this on an acoustic guitar just holds the strings in place. And then up on the headstock we've got the tuning pegs, and the tuning pegs just wind the strings tighter so that we can tune the strings to a specific note. Now that we've taken a look at the parts of an acoustic guitar, we're going to take a look at the parts of an electric guitar. Now an electric guitar operates much the same as an acoustic guitar, except for, of course, it's electrified. Now the way it works is, again, when the strings are strummed or plucked, the string vibrates at a certain frequency. Now instead of there being a sound hole and the sound reverberating inside of the body of the guitar, the sound is picked up by pickups, which then turn the vibration into an electromagnetic signal, which is then moved along the wiring of the guitar into your cord and then over to your amplifier, which is then turned back into sound. Now on a regular electric guitar, often the bridge is fixed, similar to that of an acoustic. But here, I have a special kind of bridge, and this is called a floating bridge. This is a Floyd Rose model. And essentially what a floating bridge is a bridge that is balanced between the tension of the strings and some springs in the back of the body. Now on the Floyd Rose floating bridge, you have these hex key screws, which essentially lock the strings into place. So when you're stringing the guitar, you put the strings through the bridge and then you lock them into place. Over here, you have a few little dials, and essentially what those do is those allow you to fine-tune these strings. So moving up from the bridge, we've got the pickups, and the pickups again pick up the vibrations from the strings and turn that into electromagnetic signals. Below the pickups, we've got our volume knob. The volume knob just adjusts the volume, how loud the electric guitar is. And on this guitar, we've got two tone knobs. And essentially what that does, each one affects the tone of the pickups. So for a demonstration, if I'm playing a chord here, I can change the tone to sound a little bit more bassy, and then if I change it again, that gives it more treble. Now, below the volume knob and tone knobs, we've got the pickup selector or pickup switch. So what the pickup switch does is enable us to choose between either the bridge or neck pickup, or use a blend of two. So here, I'm playing with just the bridge pickup. So this pickup here is picking up the sound of the strings. Now when I move it over, it's now in the neck position, and it's only picking up the sound from the neck pickup. And essentially the difference there is the sound from the neck pickup has a little bit more bass and kind of has a more flowy tone, and the bridge pickup has a little bit of a sharper, more trebly tone. So you have the neck position on this guitar, then we've got middle, which is a blend of both, and then we've got bridge, which is just the bridge pickup. Now moving up from the body to the neck is pretty much the same as an acoustic guitar. The acoustic guitar that we were looking at had 22 frets. This guitar has 24 frets, and essentially that just means you have 2 more positions on the guitar where you could play notes. Now on the guitar frets, we have something called fret markers, and those are little triangles on this guitar. On the acoustic, they were little dots. And what these do is mark out the frets so that you can see what frets you are playing. Now on the top of the neck, you also have fret markers marking specific frets so that you can easily look down and see what frets you're playing. So on the electric guitar here, we have a fret marker on the 1st fret, the 3rd fret, the 5th fret, the 7th fret, the 9th fret, and we always have 2 fret markers on the 12th fret. Then moving up, we have a fret marker on the 15th fret, the 17th fret, the 19th fret, the 21st fret, and the 24th fret. This again enables us to quickly see where we are on the neck. Now moving up from the neck to the head, here again we have the nut. Now on a guitar with a floating bridge, we have a locking nut, which means that the strings go through the nut, and then there's little plates on top which are then held in place by screws, and they're essentially locked into place. And then above we've got our tuning pegs, again quite similar to an acoustic guitar. Next, let's talk about the string names. So as we talked about earlier, the way a guitar works essentially is strings are plucked and they vibrate at a certain frequency, which we hear as a specific note. So it's kind of backwards because we have a low string and a high string, but the high string is actually the string that's lowest to the ground, and the low string is actually highest up in the air. But we call it the low string because the frequency is the lower frequency. So you have a low frequency string, a higher frequency string, and they move up in higher frequencies all the way up to the highest frequency. So on the very top, we've got the low E string. So this is tuned to an E. The next string down is the A. The next string down is a D string. That's this string right here. Then the next string right here is a G string. The string higher than that is a B string. And then we've got the high E string, and that's on the very bottom. So the very bottom string and the very top string are both tuned to E. So now that we know what the string names are, let's tune. So I've purposefully untuned this guitar to kind of make it sound bad. So we're going to start by tuning the low E string. Now that again is the thickest string on the guitar, also the highest up from the ground, or the lowest pitch. That's this top one here. Now we're going to find that string and we're going to follow it all the way down to the tuning peg which is connected to it, so that's this one here. And we can use an app on our phones. So you could download a tuning app from any app provider. I'm using one here called Fine Tuner. So I'm just going to take my pick and I'm going to strum that note, just the low E string, and I'm going to see what it says. Now I want the low E string on the tuner to show E2. So I'm going to strum that note and I'm going to see where it is on the tuner. And you want to turn the tuning peg to make it line up with the middle, on this app, the middle little triangle, and it'll highlight green when it's the right tuning. Now again, there's our E, and you can see it's nice and tuned. Next we'll move on to the A string, so that's the next string down. So again, we're going to just strum that string, We're gonna see where it is on the tuner. And again, we want that to go to A2. So if it's too low, we're gonna move up until it shows an A. And there we go. Next, we're gonna move on to the D string. Getting close. After the D string, we're gonna move on to the G string. This one's already pretty close. Next, we're gonna move on to the B string. And again, we're just gonna turn that until it's perfect, and then the high E string. So again, I started on my lowest E, then I went up to my A, to my D, to my G, to my B, to my E. And then again, let's just check all of those one more time, and they all look like they're in tune. So then, our guitar's in tune. Sounds a lot better. Now let's say you don't have a tuner. There's one other easy tool that you can use to tune the guitar, and this is tuning by ear. Now when you tune by ear, essentially you are tuning the guitar to itself, using one string as your reference, and then tuning the remaining strings to that string. If possible, you will want to tune the reference string to a reference pitch. For example, a tone from a piano or other instrument, or even a reference pitch online. The reference note you will want to use is the exact pitch of one of your guitar strings. I like to use the low E string, which on a keyboard is the E note, 2 octaves below middle C, or a frequency of 82.4 Hertz. If you don't have any reference pitch and you have nothing to tune to, you can just take what you think is the E note and then tune the rest of the guitar to that. Let's just say that's good. We're going to use that pitch. Now what we do is tune the A string to sound as close as possible to the 5th fret on the low E string, which is an A note, or our reference pitch. So now when you hit the 5th fret on the E string, that makes an A. So the A string should sound similar to that E string. And you can hear there's a difference. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn the A tuner, so the tuner on the A string, until it sounds like the E string when you play the E string on the 5th fret. Close. And now those strings sound somewhat close to each other. We move on to the next 2 strings, so when we hit the A string on the 5th fret, that'll be the same note as the D, so that A string on the 5th fret is a D. So now you'll tune the D string by turning the D tuner until it matches the 5th fret on the A string. And then onwards to the G string, same thing. There it is. Now on the G string, it's actually the 4th fret. So every string is the 5th fret except for the G string. So again, the G string is the 4th string down. So over here on the 4th fret, that should be the B note. And again, we move up to the E string, and we're going to tune the E string to sound like the 5th fret on the B string. And there we go. So again, the 5th fret on the E string is an A, which is the next string down. The 5th fret on the A string is a D, which is the string below it. The 5th fret on the D string is a G, which is the string below it. The 4th fret on the G string is a B. And the 5th fret on the B string is the high E. And that's how you tune by ear. Thanks for watching episode 1. I hope you've learned something valuable and are now able to tune your own guitar. If you have any questions or for more information, feel free to visit us at lectureowl.com. Next, in episode 2, we're going to talk about proper posture, strumming, picking, and playing your first riff.